So again, I am calling an audible, and I am not going with the prophet Isaiah. I am going with a book that I confess I rarely preach from, and I don't know why that is. I need to ponder that. It's the book of Hebrews. It's one of Paul's favorite letters, long letter. Some scholars would say it was just a really long sermon, and that would have been a marathon of a sermon if that's what it was. But it is a great book. And I need to pursue it more because I don't know why, but I'll ponder that. But today I am preaching from the book of Hebrews, reading this morning from the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, starting with verse 29, and continuing through chapter 12, verse 3. At the end of the reading, you may realize a verse that is familiar because we do it every Sunday as part of our benediction. Paul writes these words to the folks then, and to we, the disciples gathered today in the year 2025. By an act of faith, Israel walked through the Red Sea on dry ground. The Egyptians tried it, and they drowned. By faith, the Israelites marched around the walls of Jericho for 7 days, and the walls fell flat. By an act of faith, Rahab, the Jericho harlot, welcomed the spies and escaped the destruction that came on those who refused to trust God. All this was done by faith. I could go on and on and on, but I've run out of time. There are so many more. Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, the prophets, and being a clergywoman, I'm going to throw in, and Paul won't mind, a couple women in the list of the faithful as well. There is Sarah and Tamar and Rachel and Deborah and so many more. I too could go on and on and on. Through acts of faith, each toppled kingdoms, made justice work, took the promises for themselves and believed in them. They were protected from lions, fires, and sword thrust, turned disadvantage to advantage. They won battles. They routed alien armies. People received their loved ones back from the dead. There were those who, under torture, refused to give in and go free, preferring something better, preferring the promise of God's resurrection. Others braved abuse and whips and, yes, chains and dungeons. We have stories of those who were stoned, sawed in two, murdered in cold blood, stories of vagrants wandering the earth in animal skins, stories of persons made homeless, friendless, powerless. The world didn't deserve them, making their way as best they could on the cruel edges of the world. Not one of these people, even though their lives of faith were exemplary, got their hands on what had been and was promised. God had a better plan for us, that their faith and our faith would come together to make one completed whole, their lives of faith not complete apart from ours. Do you see what this means? All these pioneers who blazed the way, all these veterans cheering us on, this great cloud of witnesses cheering us on. It means that we then better get on with it. Strip down and start running and never, ever quit. No extra spiritual fat, no parasitic sins. Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished this race we are in. Sure, look and study how he did it, because he never lost sight of where he was headed, the exhilarating finish in and with God. He could and did put up with anything along the way. Jesus endured the cross, the shame of the cross, whatever, and now he's there in the place of honor, right alongside God. So when you find yourselves tired, and when we find yourselves flagging in your faith, go over that story again. Remember the story of Jesus. Remember the story of all these faithful ones. Remember these stories item by item by item. That long litany of hostility that Jesus himself plowed through. Do that. Keep running the race. Remember Jesus. all that he has done for us, I tell you, that will shoot some adrenaline into your souls. This is the word of God for we who are the people of God. Thanks be to God. The book of Hebrews is really a book written to fire us up, a book written to say, keep on keeping on. It's kind of like the halftime talk if the first half has not gone well. It's kind of like the pregame, let's go get 'em speech. It is a book to call us and to remember all that has been journeyed, to get inspiration from those who have lived faithful lives, and to then be encouraged and be empowered and be fired up to continue the work of faith. It is definitely a book worth reading and pursuing. It is a book of living faith. Faith that is not a noun, faith that is very much a verb and a way of life. I've talked many times about being the youngest of 5 children and having 3 older brothers who were interesting fellas. And I understand when you have a baby sister who's willing to be like hanging around with them, well, let's have some fun with the baby sister. I get it. And my brothers enjoyed that very much. Now, at our house, which my maternal grandfather built, big old farmhouse, we also had a garage. It was a 2-story garage, and there were a lot of trees on the property. And there was a large oak tree on the back side of the garage. And my brothers one day said, wouldn't it be fun if we made a rope swing? So they went and got a ladder and tied on a rope swing, and they would then crawl up to the 2nd story of the garage and jump out the window on the rope swing. Sounds like fun. And I'm watching this going, oh. So my brothers added and tied on a smaller hold for baby sister to be able to also jump out the window on a rope swing. They literally did that. So I'm like, okay, let's go. And I can remember my mother, the garage faced the kitchen window. And I'm sure she would look out and be like, oh, that's the youngest going out the window. But I did that, and it was fun. I had my little foot thing I'd put in and go out the window. It was actually quite cool. You went really fun. And it was cool because you kind of drop until the rope caught, and then you kick out far. And I remember one weekend, my oldest brother, John, was home from college, went to Penn State. He was home, and he brought along 2 of his college roommates with him. And they came, and of course, the cool thing was, hey, let's all jump out the garage window on the rope swing. So, of course, as a little kid, I'm like, this is great. And I have to be, let's get attention doing this. So we all walk up to the 2nd level of the garage, and my brothers all jump out, and then my oldest brother, John, says, Sally, you go. So I jump out. And then I remember his roommate, Johnny Angler, said, I'm not doing this. You guys are nuts. So, of course, the response was, Sally's doing it. She's like 8 years old. Come on. No, I'm not doing it. So, of course, that spurred me on to jump out more and more. And I'd be like, I'll go again. And I kept jumping out the window on the rope swing. And Johnny Angler then said this line, you know, you guys are bananas. I know John, but I don't trust John. I know John, but I don't trust John, so I'm not jumping out of any window. Central to faith is trust. Trust in God. And we hear this litany of what Paul mentions, all the biggies of our faith. It was trust in God that God would deliver them that caused the Israelites to go into the Red Sea, and trusting God would make it dry ground. It was faith that had the Israelites walk around and march around until the walls fell down at Jericho. It was faith upon faith every step of the way. So why is it then that we remember? Why take the time to list all of this in a book? Because when we remember, we feel that connection. When we remember, we know who have helped journey us to this moment. And I firmly believe that we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. I believe it in my soul. I firmly believe that all those in the course of the faith universal and all those in my individual life do surround me, I believe it. I firmly believe they surround and encourage me. And there are times, if you ever see me out and about and I don't see you, and you'll see me see a red bird or a purple flower, and I'll go, that's saying, see you, Graham, see you, Mom. I firmly believe they surround and are a part of me. And they give me encouragement to keep the faith. Faith is not something that we possess. Faith is something that we process. We don't possess it. It's a process, and we journey through it. Faith very much is a verb. I love Anne Lamott. She could write anything, and I love her comment on what is faith. Anne Lamott writes for us these words: I have a lot of faith. Anne Lamott's backstory, by the way, Anne Lamott did not come to faith at a young age. Anne Lamott partied a lot. Anne Lamott struggled with addiction. Anne Lamott lived rough and tough and came to faith much later in her life. And she came to faith by the good people of a Presbyterian church, who, coming off a rough night, hungover, heard them singing hymns. It was like, oh, that's good, and walked into the church. Never discount the role of music. And then she had people in the congregation surround her with love. Lamott was pregnant and not married when she entered this Presbyterian church in San Francisco. Lamott then started to stay Sunday after Sunday and started to become part of this faith community. And one of my favorite things is she has this little boy, she births her son named Sam, brings the baby to church. She's low income, single mom. And one of the things I love the story she tells, where the older people of the church, it was an older congregation, she said every Sunday they'd come over and hand me a bag of dimes, of nickels, of change, of their loose change. That's what they had to give. And they gave it to her because they cared for her. That's faith. It's faith for Lamott to see it and keep showing up. So Lamott writes for us these words: you know, I have a lot of faith, but I am also afraid a whole lot of time. And I have no real certainty about anything. I remembered something that my priest friend, Father Tom, told me, that the opposite of faith is not doubt, it's certainty. Get that? The opposite of faith is not doubt, it's certainty. Certainty is missing the point entirely. Faith includes not being sure, but going ahead anyway. Faith includes noticing the mess. Faith includes seeing the emptiness and feeling the discomfort and letting it simply be there because it is there and it is real. And faith is sitting with it and believing that sooner or later the light will come again. That is faith. And it is faith that drove our founders and ancestors in the faith, and it is definitely faith that drives us forward as well. In the book of Hebrews, as I'm recounting it and saying, I need to preach this more often, Paul uses a lot of metaphors. I'm an English major, I like metaphors. And he uses some sports metaphors. I'm like, oh, you got me, Paul, let's talk. And the metaphor he uses today is about running a race. Clearly, I'm not a runner. I like sports where I have to move short distances, like volleyball or softball. I'm good there. I'll run around the bases, short distances on a volleyball court. Not a big runner, but I have friends who are runners. And Paul compares the journey of faith to running a race, to running the race and to keep running. Now, I know of several friends of mine in college and in high school were sprinters, the short distance. We called my one friend Bam. Her initials were that were her initials, and we called her Bam. Bam was an amazing sprinter. She was really good. And afterwards, I would talk to Bam, like, where are you focused on when you're running? And as a sprinter, she says, my gaze is totally on the finish line. I'm intently focused on getting those 50 yards to the finish line. I says, okay. And then I talk to a long distance runner. I know people who do half marathons and marathons, and I say, how do you do it? What are you focusing on when you run? And they say, oh, when I'm running long distances, I'm focused on myself. and I'm paying attention to what my body's telling me, and I'm paying attention to my surroundings, and I'm paying attention to what my pace is. Folks, in this journey of faith, we are not sprinters. Ours is not, let's just get our heaven points. We are focused on the long haul. We are long distance runners. And our focus should be on ourselves. Where are we at spiritually? Where are we at? And what is the pace we keep? And how are we running? And there's nothing better when playing any athletic contest or running a race. I love it when they show the marathon here in Pittsburgh and all the people that line up. They don't know these people, but they're there to support. And they're handing out glasses of water and they're cheering them on. Nothing better than having folks you love on the course of faith cheering you on. I remember I broke the gender barrier in South Buffalo Little League. I did. I broke the gender barrier, no shock there, and I was a pitcher. That's good. I have a really good arm. In college, I played short and third and left field. I have a good arm. I can throw that ball. And I pitched as a little kid. And here I am, the only girl in the league, and I'm on the mound. And you know when you're a kid, and that's like pitcher is the role. That's the you want to pitch. You're always involved in the action. And again, I could throw it hard, and as a kid, the whole deal of pitching was throw it as hard as you can with some control. So I pitched, I think I pitched well, and I loved it when my family would show up to my games. If I wasn't pitching, I played first base. But the night I pitched, my family would all show up, and I loved that. And my brother Mark, his cheer was, bring the smoke, throw the heat, throw the heat. And he'd just yell it for like 6 innings, and I loved that. And they'd be like, and my other brothers would be like, come on, Sally, it's all you, it's all you. And I loved it. And then one of the neatest moments was my father. One game, my dad came to the game, and he was a steelworker, so he didn't make a lot of the games, but the game he came to with my mother and the family is all there, and I was pitching. I was pitching pretty well. I mean, I was good at that. And I would come off from pitching and I would sit down and Dad would take off his coat and put it on me. Like, really? My arm was like 9-year-old arm. I didn't need, but man, I loved that, because that's what the pitchers, the big leaguers did. Yeah, I gotta loosen the arm. If they had a bucket of ice, I would have stuck it in ice. I'm like, I gotta loosen up. I loved every bit of that. I loved Big League Chew. Do you remember that? I loved that. I recently, by the way, I bought it because in a store and saw a Big League Chew that had a girl playing softball on the package. I'm like, I'm buying that. I didn't chew it, but I love the image. It's about time a girl baseball player on the package of the gum. So my dad would do that, and I'm loving every bit, and I'm pitching well, and my brother's yelling, just keep bringing the smoke, bring the smoke, bring the fire, smoke them. I'm like, okay, I got it. And then my mother afterwards told me this story. In the middle of the game, one of the other parents who didn't know me or us as a family yelled and went over to my dad and said, wow, I gotta tell you, your boy sure can pitch. And my dad, still worker father, looked at him and said, sir, that's no boy, that's my daughter. And you are right, she sure can pitch. It was knowing and identifying me. God does the same with each of us. God knows us, knows who we are, and loves us as we are, and identifies us and says, keep going, keep running the race, keep doing what I have called and empowered you to do. We're not on a sprint. It's not about getting heaven points and getting in, and I don't really care about the rest of the world. It's about running a race that honors the call, that makes the use of the gifts we've been given. Oh, I can't wait to tell the story of hot metal. Dylan, I loved what you said. It's so hot metal. I am proud to say I'm a hot metaler. And people go, what? And I've had someone say, oh, is that because your dad was a steel worker? I'm like, oh, no. I said, let me tell you about hot metal. And in the 4 months I've been with you, I could talk for hour upon hour upon hour. Here is a spirit of faith that is genuine. I love that we call ourselves scrappy, because we are. I love that there's a spirit of authenticity. We don't put on airs. Come on in, and this is who we are. I love that the community of Hazelwood is starting to know who we are. And it's not like, oh, where's Hot Meadow? It's like, oh, yesterday several times, oh, you're Hot Meadow. I'm like, yeah, we are. Come see us Sundays at 10:30. We together run this course of faith. The baton has been passed to us, and we will carry it forward. Some will be the lead runners, and that's tremendous. If some get tired and need to step out for a while and catch your breath, that's okay, please do it. But what we will never do here at Hot Meadow, and you evidenced this a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, was we don't quit. We will not quit. We will continue to run the race. We have such a great cloud of witnesses cheering us on. Together, let us run with faith. Let us run with encouragement. Let us run with authenticity. Let us run scrappy. The race is before us. And all God's beloved and beautiful children said, amen.